When you think of scenery in Mexico, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it white sandy beaches? Is it the desert? Or is it cartel country? Whatever it might be for you, many Americans seem to think that geography and topography in Mexico is limited to one type. In this video, we'll go through some common expat areas as well as some lesser known destinations. And while we're at it, we'll compare crime statistics. In 2017, an old friend of mine and I drove from Phoenix, Arizona to Ensenada in Baja California for their annual beer festival. And on our way back to Arizona, we drove through northern Baja California along the Route 1, which is like their version of the Pacific Coast Highway. And Rosarito was one of the places we stopped at on the way back home. Rosarito is about a 15-20 minute drive south of the U.S.-Mexico border, probably about 10 miles or so. It's fairly removed from the border, a little bit of a ways distance. Farther down the road from Rosarito, I'd say about an hour and a half south driving distance, you'll end up in Ensenada, which is about 80 miles south of San Diego, a 2-hour drive south from the border. Ensenada has a population of about 500,000 people, so it's a fairly major city and has all the amenities you need. It's a major cruise port, major tourist destination, so English is fairly well spoken there. In 2017, I went on a cruise to southern Baja California. We left Long Beach, California, stopped at Cabo San Lucas, and we did a shore excursion. We took tender boats from the ship because the ship was too big to fit into the port. So it put us on small little tender craft that got us to the shore, and then we got on a bus and just went up the western coast of the southern tip of Baja, slightly northwest of Cabo San Lucas. So it was horseback riding in the desert, about 4 or 5 hours shore excursion. It was fast. We went horseback riding. After it was over, got back on the bus, back to Cabo, back on the tender boat, back on the ship, and then we were underway again, headed to Puerto Vallarta the following day. I had a great time in Cabo. I wish I could have seen more of it, but we had very little time. And that's okay. I'll be down there again someday. Another city in Baja California, Mexico is La Paz. It's the state capital of Baja California Sur. It's probably a couple hours drive northeast of Cabo San Lucas. Haven't been there yet. I hear wonderful things about it. It's a hot desert climate, hot and dry, kind of like Phoenix and Tucson, which I'm used to. And it's also, obviously, you got the beach, you got that advantage, and there are ferries that go from La Paz to the mainland, Mazatlán. So that's another bonus. So once I make my way to La Paz, I'll have more content for you. Let's go into some crime statistics now. This is the website elcrimen, elcri.men/en. And that takes you to this page, which is the February 2025 crime report for the country. And these are homicide stats. If you go hover your mouse pointer over Baja California, 154 homicides, I believe, that month, in a population of 4.1 million people. That works out to 48 murders per 100,000 residents. But that's statewide. So that obviously doesn't granularize down to Tijuana, Ensenada, and those other cities. For that, you go here, crime map, and what we'll do here is you could zoom in. This is northern Baja California, Ensenada, my happy place there, 19.2 per 100,000, so it's relatively safe. But if you contrast that, if you go up the road to Rosarito, and crime rate increases, this is at least the homicide rate, it's about double what Ensenada is, and if you go up to Tijuana, it's even more, 73 out of 100,000. And Tecate, even more. But Mexicali, for some reason, quite a bit lower. I can't speculate as to why. That'd be a whole other video. But now if we go check out Baja California Sur, here is La Paz, the capital. Quite low crime rate, 8.9 out of 100,000. And if you go down this way, here is Cabo San Lucas. It's actually lumped together with San Jose del Cabo under one municipality called Los Cabos. So Los Cabos and Baja California Sur, a very low crime rate here, 5.4. For the purposes of this video, I divided Mexico into 5 regions: Baja California, the Middle Pacific Coast, the Southern Pacific Coast, Central Highlands, and the Yucatán Peninsula. Now, I know this doesn't encompass the entirety of Mexico, but for this video, this is how I'm going to lay out these regions. Region number 2 is the Middle Pacific states. There's Sinaloa, Nayarit, Jalisco, and Colima. First, let's take a look at the state of Sinaloa. Here's the state of Sinaloa, and it's right across the Gulf of California or the Sea of Cortez. Here is Los Cabos, that's Cabo San Lucas and San Jose del Cabo. And right across is Mazatlán, which is the place we'll take a look at first. It's a city of about 500,000 people, and it's important to know that we do know that the state of Sinaloa is where the Sinaloa drug cartel is located, but fortunately, Mazatlán is down the road about 125 miles or 200 kilometers from, which I believe is the capital, Culiacan, where here there's a lot of activity going on lately. Ever since the fall of 2024, there's been an increase in violence, a lot of street violence. It's just not a good scene. People, tourists, are advised to just steer clear, go around it. Here's Federal Highway 15 goes right through the city of Culiacan. You would want to avoid that. Luckily, 15D, D is a toll road, and then 1D becomes 15D, goes right around the city. So if you're on the road in the state of Sinaloa, say you're going from the state of Sonora, going southbound, and you want to go to Mazatlán, you would naturally be passing through Culiacan, but luckily the toll road here, 1D, then 15D, will steer you right around the city, which is a great thing. Otherwise, you'd have to get a plane ticket and fly over it, which is also an option, although the price of airfare is becoming uncertain in this economy. So ground travel is still a lot cheaper. It's slower, but the Mexican bus system is quite reliable in my personal experience. In terms of homicide statistics over the past consecutive 12 months, looking here in the state of Sinaloa, obviously just by looking at the map you could tell Culiacan is the largest city with a very high homicide rate, 58.2 per 100,000. That's comparable to other small areas in the state of Sinaloa, other places you wouldn't normally go, places I've never even heard of. The only other place in the state of Sinaloa that would be of interest, there would be two. There's Mazatlán, where that's a popular expat location and a great vacation spot. I was there last summer for a week. Relatively low crime rate. The other area here is Los Mochis, which there is one passenger railway in Mexico, El Chepe. I believe it starts out here in Los Mochis, and you go up this way, and it takes you up into the state of Durango, somewhere around here. And I also believe that this train will take you into Mexico's version of the Grand Canyon. It's a Copper Canyon. Very scenic ride, I hear. Very beautiful. It's on my bucket list of things to do. But Los Mochis, Culiacan, Mazatlán. Mazatlán being the most attractive of the three destinations. Los Mochis, yeah, for the train. Culiacan you want to avoid altogether, like I've said before. Drive around it or fly over it. Now let's move on to the states of Nayarit and Jalisco. Popular expat areas in Nayarit are Sayulita, Bucerias, and Nuevo Vallarta. Popular areas for expats on the Jalisco coast include Puerto Vallarta and Mismaloya. Fun fact, Mismaloya was the site where the film, I believe it was a 1963 film directed by Richard Burton featuring Elizabeth Taylor called Night of the Iguana. That was filmed in Mismaloya, and it actually put Puerto Vallarta on the map about 60 years ago, some 60-odd years ago. Now moving south to the tiny state of Colima, which is south of Jalisco and has some of the highest homicide rates in the entire country. Here are February 2025 homicide statistics these are the middle states, Sinaloa, Nayarit, Jalisco, and Colima. Sinaloa having a middle of the road, middle of the pack homicide rate. Nayarit far safer, as is Jalisco. And the most dangerous though is Colima. Much higher homicide rate than Sinaloa or any of these other three states here that I just mentioned. Now let's take a look in particular at the crime maps. That way we could zoom in on a more local level. So we did Sinaloa. Now going down here, the state, this is Nayarit. The most dangerous is a city, yet another city I've never even heard of. This is, I won't even try to pronounce that. That's a quite high homicide rate there, 330 per 100,000 per year. Tepic, went through there on a bus. That's a lot more chill, obviously. And then if you keep on going south, there's Bucerias. I don't know if you can get
that much closer, but there's Puerto Vallarta here in Jalisco, over across this river is the state of Nayarit. There's Bucerias, which there's no data for that city, or Sayulita is around here somewhere. I don't have any data for that town as well. These are very small, like little fishing villages and places like that. But overall, Nayarit, pretty safe place. Moving down south, and here is Colima, very small state. Manzanillo, I've mentioned this in other videos and probably earlier in this video as well. One of the quite high homicide rate here. And another city, Colima, in the state of Colima. This must be the capital. Pretty high up there as well as its suburbs.
Now we're moving along to the southern Pacific Coast states, which include Michoacan, Guerrero, Oaxaca, and Chiapas.
For our southern Pacific states, we have Michoacan, Guerrero, Oaxaca, and Chiapas, with Chiapas having by far the lowest crime rate, homicide rate, 6.3 out of 100,000 per year. Oaxaca, slightly more crime, but still quite low. And then we have Michoacan and Guerrero kind of in the middle of the pack here. Not too dangerous, not too safe either. Now, let's take a look at the crime map itself, get a more detailed look at things with regard to homicides over the past 12 months. Let me blow this up here. Okay, so here we have Michoacan State. Morelia is one of the safest cities. It's a large city. Fun fact, it's known for butterfly refuge or a butterfly exhibit or something to do with butterflies if you're into that. I'm not, but Morelia is a good place from what I've heard. Another one I can't pronounce, a quite high homicide rate. You got other places too, like Zamora. Yucatan's not even on my radar. It's according to the U.S. Department of State. It's a level 4 do not travel state. What I don't like about the U.S. State Department is that they take an entire state and kind of just do a broad brush stroke. Level 4, do not travel at all. Level 3, strongly reconsider travel. And level 2, I think, is increased caution. And level 1 is no precautions needed. Most states in Mexico are 2, 3, and 4. Michoacan's a 4. And I think Guerrero is 2. But looking at an entire state and looking at it just as one entity is not really fair, which is why I like this map here, how it enables you to zoom in on particular towns and cities. Let's move south to Guerrero. The city of Acapulco, the resort town, is, I think, the seat of Guerrero, the capital. And sadly, it's had a lot of cartel activity in the past couple of decades, so it's got a fairly high homicide rate here, which is too bad. But I've seen videos on YouTube, I've read blogs that Acapulco, if you're in a safe spot, it's a good place to live. I don't know about the rest of the state. Generally, I've said this in other videos before. If you're in a major city, generally you're safer than you would be out in the sticks because major cities and municipalities have strong police and military presence. So let's move along here. Nothing else to see in Guerrero besides Acapulco, if you ask me. Moving right along here, this is Oaxaca. Oaxaca, we have the city of Oaxaca in the state of Oaxaca. High altitude, nobody there speaks English. Crime rate, one of the lowest, 8.2. And then one other place going south to the coast. A particular city I'm looking for, Puerto Escondido. I don't think that has crime stats, but the coast of Oaxaca seems pretty safe. But if you go deeper into certain states of Mexico, like this is a long name here, but higher crime rates here in these, 19,000 people, 58,000 people. I've said this before. Small towns and rural areas make it easier for cartels to operate without being discovered. So that's why there would be higher crime rates there as well. Guerrero, Oaxaca, and finally out here is Chiapas. That's still Oaxaca. Keep going. Here's Chiapas. Tuxtla Gutierrez, Chiapas. Pretty large city, quite a low homicide rate. There's a couple of other places. There's Tapachula. This is the far southern end of Mexico. Mexico don't get no farther south than this. And this is a fairly safe area, but I've said it before, certain areas of Chiapas that border Guatemala. This is it right here. Suchiate, Chiapas, high homicide rate, 120. And here to the east is Guatemala. So the Guatemalan border, state of Chiapas, danger zone. But going deeper into Chiapas, it seems a lot safer here, a lot of yellow. Keep going around here. This is the border, another area that borders Guatemala, Chiapas, middle of the pack crime rate, homicide that is.
Now moving right along to the Central Highlands area of Mexico, which I've designated for the purposes of this video, the states of Jalisco, Querétaro, Guanajuato, Aguascalientes, the state of Mexico, and Mexico City.
Now let's take a look at crime statistics for the Central Highlands area. Here is the homepage for El Crimen, February homicides. Here's Jalisco. So we're looking at Jalisco, Guanajuato, Aguascalientes, Querétaro, Mexico City, and the state of Mexico. That's the Central Highlands for the purposes of this video. And you could tell easily Guanajuato on a statewide basis has the highest homicide rate out of these other states here that I've mentioned. Homicide, let's just out of curiosity take a look at kidnappings, because a lot of people are concerned about Americans getting kidnapped in Mexico, which has happened before, but crimes and violence directed towards foreign tourists is rare. Cartels don't normally mess around with foreign tourists. They don't see any business purpose to doing that. But for those who want to know about kidnappings, Chihuahua State, this is an outlier. It stands way out among every other state in the country. Let's go back to homicides on the statewide level. Guanajuato, the highest out of all these four here. So now let's go take a look at the crime map. First, let me blow this up full screen, make it easier. All right. So here is the state of Jalisco, this big area here. It's kind of hard to see it on this map, but here's Guadalajara, the third largest city in Mexico, bested only by Monterrey and Mexico City. Guadalajara's crime rate, homicide rate at least, is pretty low, comparatively speaking, especially for a city. Guadalajara itself, 1.4 million, but the entire metro area of Guadalajara is somewhere around 5-6 million. It's quite large. Pretty low crime rate here. Its homicide rate here is up open. I stayed there in 2022 for a week, and even lower homicide rate there. Other areas, their homicide rates are here respectively. There is a suburb out this way, southwest of Guadalajara. And here you have the expat enclave of Lake Chapala. As you can see, they've got about a population of 60,000 people in Chapala. 2 murders, which works out to 3.4 out of 100,000. That's how you interpret that stat. Now let's go take a look at, here is an underrated state, Aguascalientes. And here is the state capital, Aguascalientes. How creative. Rate 5.7 homicides out of 100,000. That's a pretty good number. Population 1 million. It's a fairly large city. And now let's back out and go check out, this is Guanajuato, the state capital, Guanajuato, of the state, Guanajuato. And there's your crime rates, or homicide rates at least. Leon, a little bit higher. Now if you go south, the southern part of the state of Guanajuato, here's where the numbers increase. You have Irapuato, Salamanca, Celaya, Salvatierra, Tarimoro, some other places I've never heard of. These are smaller populations. Well, not Celaya, but some of these areas, 37,000. That's a relatively small population. So it gives cartels more areas where they could do their operations. Let's also take a look at other states. Here is Querétaro, the state capital, Santiago de Querétaro. Very low murder rate there. There's another city in Querétaro. And now we move southeast towards Mexico City. And here, this is the state of Mexico. Toluca is, I think, the capital there. Low homicide rate. Then we move down into Mexico City itself. CDMX, as that's affectionately known. It's Mexico City, the entire metro area, we're looking at around 22 to 23 million people. It's gigantic, ginormous. Here is the particular part of the city of Mexico. It's broken out into different areas, but you could tell 12.5, 15.6. These are quite low murder rates, especially for a city this size. Again, I attribute this to increased policing, military presence. CDMX, it's a fairly touristy area. It's the capital of the entire country, so it's going to see a lot of traffic. So, of course, they have a great vested interest in protecting tourism in Mexico City and elsewhere as well. That rounds out the Central Highlands area.
And finally, for our 5th region in this video, we go to the Yucatán Peninsula, which includes the states of Quintana Roo, Yucatan, Campeche, and Tabasco. Yes, Tabasco, like the Tabasco sauce. Fun fact.
And now looking at crime stats for the Yucatán Peninsula area, which for this video I've designated those as Quintana Roo, Yucatan, Campeche, and Tabasco. Starting with Quintana Roo, on a statewide basis, fairly low homicide rate. Yucatan is the lowest, which, as I've mentioned in other videos. Campeche, a bit higher. And Tabasco is the highest of the four. And now let's go take a look at things down at the local level. All right, so some famous areas. Of course, everybody knows Cancun. When you think of Mexico, most people probably Cancun might be one of the first cities that pops into their head. So taking a look at that city here, Benito Juarez, rate of 28, so it's quite low, which that would be expected for a tourist destination. There's some other areas that are a bit higher crime rates, like the smaller, lower population areas like this one here. You got the island of Cozumel. Down here, though, this town, this is Tulum in Quintana Roo. I've heard stories that crime has been on the increase there in Tulum. So given that rate of 107 out of 100,000, that's 0.1% homicide rate, I might stay away from that area. And then moving along to, this is Yucatan, the state, Mérida, 1 million residents, one of the lowest homicide rates I've ever seen in this country, if not the lowest. There's also some nice places in between. There's Valladolid, low population and a low homicide rate, best of both worlds. I think that Chichen Itza is in this area here, Chichen Itza, the Mayan ruin. I've never been, but it's on my list. Moving along, here's the city of Progreso, it's a small city, 70,000 people. This is where, if you live in Mérida and you want to go to the beach, Progreso is the place to go. It's about a half an hour drive north, I believe. Moving along, this is Campeche, a very underrated state from what I've heard. The capital, Campeche, an extremely low homicide rate, as you can see. Moving along the coast. Here is Tabasco, Villahermosa, some other areas, but this is the state of Tabasco. The Gulf Coast, it's not much to see other than Yucatán Peninsula. It's very flat, it's swampy, featureless. There's not a whole lot of attractiveness for tourists, at least in that regard. That's over here is the state of Veracruz. Here is Tabasco. It's a rather small one. So that rounds out the homicide stats for the Yucatán Peninsula area.
These 5 regions are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of exploring Mexico. The country has 31 states plus Mexico City, and it would take a very long video to cover them all sufficiently. The El Crimen website is a fantastic resource for investigating homicide rates for individual cities and towns, as well as aggregated crime data at the state level. So thank you for watching all the way to the end. I appreciate you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll answer them for you. Until then, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.